Hey, Pretty Girl Club. If my voice sounds different on this episode, it's because my allergies have been acting up, but it's okay. I'm still going to try to record as many videos as I can. I've got my peppermint water next to me, and I just took a Claritin D, so I should be okay. But I want to talk about how people always say marriage is hard. I've heard so many people who have been married for decades, and they will say, oh, I've been married for 20 years. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Or marriage is so much work and it takes a lot to be married to someone for this long. Okay, so if something is hard, and if a lot of people who are actually in that situation admit that it is the most hard thing in their entire lives, why would I then go and volunteer for that? If I am trying to live a life that is as soft as possible, why would I choose to spend the next 30 years of my life investing in something that I know is going to be hard, something that I know is going to be emotionally draining, something that I know is going to be filled with arguments? By the way, if you look online, it talks about how a lot of couples that are considered healthy argue about 2 times a week on average. And it's like, okay, if I'm arguing with someone 2 times a week, that's 104 times per year. So that's over 300 times over the next 3 years. I don't want to spend the next 3 years of my life arguing with somebody back and forth 300 times. That's not the soft life. And what a lot of women don't realize is that when they get into these marriages, especially if the man is a quote unquote protector and provider, let's say he makes more money than you could end up in a situation where the man starts dangling the lifestyle in front of you. Like, oh, well, if you leave me, whose house are you going to live in? You're not going to be able to live in a mansion. You'll be living in a 1 bedroom apartment. And another thing that people forget is that divorce costs money. So you can't just go get a divorce for free and then expect to pay out within 30 days. That's not how marriage works. That's not how divorce works. And also, if you are marrying someone with the intention of divorcing them and taking their money, I just feel like there are so many more ways that I can get money. There are so many easier ways that I can get money other than dealing with some a-hole for the next 10 to 15 years, pretending that I love him, dealing with the cognitive dissonance that causes physical stress in my body, because you guys have heard me talk on other episodes about how cognitive dissonance is actually very bad for your mental health. And what that means is you are saying one thing, but deep down inside, you believe something else. So if you are in a relationship with this guy and it's like, you don't have any feelings for him, you're not attracted to him, you actually don't like him at all, but you're just there for the bag, even though you might be able to successfully get with that man, the mental toll that it's going to take on you to keep up that lie and to be living a lie for the next several decades, that's going to do something very bad to both your mental and your physical health. And I don't want to have to spend the next 80 years of my life lying just to keep a bag. I feel like it's much easier to just start my own business. It's easier to, I can be an influencer. I can work at a bar, for God's sakes, and still have my own money. I'm only paying expenses for one person. And what a lot of people don't realize is that marriage, it really is work, no matter who you marry. There's no such thing as a marriage that doesn't require any effort. And it's like, okay, if I already have a full-time job, I don't want to take on another one. I already have one job and it's creating content, but let's say you work a 9 to 5 job. It's like, if you already have one job, why would you want to take on another one? Why not just spend that free time investing in yourself? And just because you choose not to be married, this doesn't mean that you can't still be taken out by guys. It doesn't mean that you can't flirt. It doesn't mean that you can't have sex. It doesn't mean that you can't have companionship if those are the things that you want. It just means that it makes it harder for a guy to try to financially trap you and financially abuse you. Another thing that a lot of people don't talk about is why marriages are hard. Like, have you ever asked a person who says marriage is hard, have you ever asked them, well, what's hard about it? What was the hardest thing about being married? And notice how most married people will give you very vague details because they know that if they tell you the truth, oh, he had a side baby. Oh, he punched me in the face. Oh, he slapped me in the face. Oh, he did this, he did that. They know that if they tell you exactly what happened, that it would immediately turn you off from marriage. And this is why most married couples spend more time trying to protect their image. They spend more time pulling a Simone Biles, trying to laugh things off and trying to pretend and act like everything is just perfect and pretending that it's just this whirlwind romance, when in reality, they're not telling you what goes on behind closed doors. So that right there is actually enough to turn me off from pedestalizing marriage. It's like, okay, if most married people feel like the only way that they can keep their marriage afloat is by hiding every aspect of their marriage, to the outside public and like not letting anybody know what's going on in their marriage, if you have to have all these secrets and hide everything that's going on and not talk about your husband at all, not talk about your wife at all, and just never show anything online, never tell your friends what's going on. You can't talk about any arguments. You can't tell your friends and family the bad things that he's done to you. If you have to do all of that just to stay in a marriage, that to me is a huge red flag, because I feel like if you don't have anything to hide and if everything is good and if there's no shady shit going on, you should have no problem being transparent. But what makes me turned off to pedestalizing marriage is the lack of transparency that a lot of married couples show. A lot of people who are married and they say, oh, you should go get married, like it's a great thing, marriage is a beautiful thing. They're not being transparent about everything that went on within their marriage. And so why would I choose to volunteer the next 80 years of my life for something that people are very vague about? You know, people who are in this marriage situation, they don't tell me any details of what's going on. All I know about marriage is basically what I've experienced myself and what I've seen within my family. But nobody goes out of their way and says, hey, these are the arguments we had. This is how we overcame them. This is what we had to do to stay married. Why is there a lack of transparency? That's like trying to sell a product to someone and then you don't tell them what's in the product. You don't tell them what's good about it. You don't tell them the benefits that they gain from it. You just want to say, oh yeah, it's just good because it'll protect you, and you know your children are going to be better off if they're in a two-parent home. Or you're going to be living a better life because you're going to have a two-income household, or you're going to have his income, or you're not going to have to work. And it's like, okay, but am I that broke to where I'm willing to go through all of this mental anguish and cognitive dissonance just so I can have an additional $50,000 a year? Because that's about the average salary of a man in the United States. And by the way, that's just the salary on paper. That is before taxes. That is before you take out health insurance and things like that. So it's like, am I willing to spend the next several decades of my life trying to uphold an image, lying about my relationship, or trying to be as private about my relationship as possible, keeping all of these secrets, enduring the pain of the marriage in private while putting on a smile in public? I'm supposed to spend the next 80 years of my life doing that so that I can brag to people who don't care that I have a husband and that my child is growing up in a two-parent home. So I literally have to live the rest of my life in misery and cognitive dissonance just so I can flex on people who couldn't care less either way. A lot of people pedestalize marriage because they think that it somehow is a more valid relationship. I've noticed that people make marriage more valid than being friends with benefits, boyfriend, girlfriend, baby mama, baby daddy. And I'm not faulting that. I mean, I guess everybody has their relationship preference, but I also don't pedestalize certain relationships. I don't say if you're married, you are better than somebody who is just boyfriend, girlfriend, or if you are boyfriend, girlfriend, you're better than someone who is single. I don't put relationships on an escalator to where it's like, oh, you know, marriage is at the top and you start off single and you have to try to climb the stairs and level up your relationship. So you have to go from single, and then boyfriend, girlfriend is better than single, and then being fiance is even better than that, and then being a wife is better than all of them. I don't view relationships like that, and I do not tie my self-worth and self-esteem to my relationship status. But I've noticed that a lot of women who have been in these long marriages for like 20 or 30 years, not only do they have to lie to keep up their image, they have to put on a smile even if behind closed doors they're not getting treated in the best way. They're doing that because they want to convince themselves and convince you that they have a better life than you. And I'm not falling for it. Anybody that has to go out of their way to try to convince me that they're doing better than me is not doing better than me. Because a person who is truly doing well in life doesn't feel the need to go and convince others of how great their life is. They don't feel the need to go and tell everybody how happy they are 24/7. No, they just enjoy their life in peace, and they're not worried about what others are doing because they're not comparing themselves. You guys have seen my previous episodes about the nature of a lot of men. And another reason that I got turned off from marriage is because I realize the nature of most men. If all it takes is a few pounds for you to change your whole personality towards me, then why would I sign my life away and tie my finances to you, change my name, so now my whole identity is changed? So I am no longer the woman that I was born as an individual. I am now tying my name to yours. I'm now tying my credit to yours. So if we want to apply for a mortgage or whatever, now your name is tied to my name. So if you decide to max out the credit cards on a side chick or something, now my credit can potentially be messed up, or like my future buying a house or whatever with you is going to be messed up because now you've messed up the credit. You're going to drag me down. Why would I hinge my life around someone who is going to change the way that they view me simply because I gained a few pounds, or because, because I gained 20 pounds, or maybe I got injured and now my stomach is a little bit bigger because I haven't been as mobile, or maybe I'm just old. Why would I hinge my life and center my life around a marriage to a person who is going to devalue me as I age? By the way, this is what men have said themselves, so I'm not stereotyping. I'm only repeating what I have heard men's channels say online. So they have said themselves that a woman's value declines as she ages, and your value declines as you gain weight, or if you wear makeup, wigs, weaves, or any beauty enhancements whatsoever. So I know that when I'm old, I'm going to wear wigs. Well, I already wear wigs now, and I'm going to keep wearing them, but especially like if I get old and let's say my face is saggy or like my hair goes bald or something, I'm going to wear wigs and beauty enhancements. So it's like, if all it takes is a beauty enhancement he doesn't like, a couple of pounds of weight gain, or simple boredom for him to cheat or for him to leave me, then why should I center my life around that? You have to somewhat center your life around the relationship in order to get married in the first place. You know why? Because you have to move in with that person. You have to, you're probably having kids with that person if you're married, or you're kind of planning together. You have to make plans together with that person. So where are you going to work? Where am I going to work? So in my opinion, that's putting that relationship too much at the center of my life, to where I can no longer say, hey, I just want to move and like go to Africa and just live there for 6 months and then I want to come back. Then I want to move every 6 months after that. No, you can't do that in a marriage without consulting your partner. And so marriage does require a certain level of compromise. And I've learned that a lot of men are not compromising, not as much as women, because they haven't been socialized to be very compromising like how women are. Women are socialized to bend over backwards to please our families and to serve our loved ones and stuff like that. So oftentimes in marriages, even though they will say, oh, both of us are making a compromise, no, usually the woman is making much bigger of a compromise than the man. Usually women are over here giving up their whole entire careers to become stay-at-home wives and mothers. So if that man ever cheats on her or leaves her, now she has a huge resume gap. She has no job experience over the last 10 years. She's going to be behind on all the different softwares and stuff that they may be using. She'll be behind on like how to even navigate the technology in a lot of workplaces. So women are usually the ones that end up disadvantaging themselves the most when it comes to centering their lives around these marriages. Meanwhile, 50-50 marriages, which is the norm, by the way, that's the average. So I know that a lot of people like to say, oh, I'm just going to marry a rich man. Okay, that's fine. So while you're waiting for your unicorn, I'm going to talk about reality. And the average woman who is married, she is paying bills. She's paying his bills. So it's, in my opinion, it's not fair, because the guy is actually the one who's going to end up benefiting from that the most, because he's getting a 50% discount on his bills. His status has gone up in the workplace because now he is a husband and he's a father, and so now he's more likely to get promoted. There are plenty of articles that back this information up about how men who are fathers are more likely to get promoted versus women who are like mothers and stuff. And also, even if both parents are working, oftentimes the mother is the one who is taking off work early so that she can go pick up the kids when they're sick. She's the one who goes to the school when Johnny forgot his lunch or when Johnny got into a fight or something like that. And so that stagnates women's careers. They can't really go after the promotions as much as the man can, because the man is often the one who is staying at work late and stuff. And then usually the wife is the one who's coming home so that she can cook dinner for the kids. So in my opinion, the amount of sacrifice that a woman has to make in order to stay married is much bigger than the sacrifice that a man has to make. Because even when it comes to physical appearance, let's talk about weight gain and stuff like that. It's actually normalized for a man to have, a dad bod or a little bit of a beer belly. And that's because men's looks are not as scrutinized as women. As women, we have a much higher standard. Like men place a much higher standard on our looks. And so most women who are married, they are going to be facing the pressure to remain attractive to their husband's gaze. Meanwhile, he's going to be over here looking like Homer Simpson. And so now you have to deal with the cognitive dissonance of you looking like a model while he looks like Homer Simpson. And now you have to pretend that you enjoy being with him. And another thing that made me not pedestalize marriage is that being married doesn't mean you are having good sex. That's another thing. Like, I don't know. Well, I feel like it's a stereotype anyway that when you're married that it becomes sexless over time. And I completely agree with that. Like, just because you are married to the guy, it doesn't mean he's going to suddenly be faithful. It doesn't mean that suddenly you're going to be more turned on. There's still going to be that orgasm gap. He's still going to be texting his ex. Being married does not make a man virtuous. And I've noticed that a lot of women are taught that if a man marries you, like, he's going to change, he's going to grow, he's going to mature. But yeah, how much did it take for him to grow and mature? I've seen so many married couples say, oh, well, in the beginning of our marriage, he was very broke and he was very immature. And it's like, okay, so that's another reason that I shouldn't do it then. I'm not going to spend the next 50 years of my life waiting for this man child to finally mature so that I can finally enjoy my life. Oh, well, we went through all these bad things, but we made it through the other side. No, I don't want to have to spend the rest of my life suffering and, basically feeling like I'm constantly drowning within this relationship. And then finally, 20 years later, when I'm 55 years old, I made it to the other side. Has anyone else ever noticed how much suffering is required to have a happy marriage? A lot of people who have been married for 50 years and they say their marriage is happy, they have had to go through years or decades of suffering in order to get to the happy place. And it's like, why would I go through 20 years of suffering so I can be happy for the last 5 years of the marriage? That doesn't make sense. I could just decenter marriage altogether and then I can just be happy starting right now because I only have to please myself. I don't have to worry about appeasing the man's gaze and, trying to keep up with whatever porn stars he's watching, trying to keep up with whatever exes he's looking at, whatever girls he's following on Instagram, having to push that down and pretend like those insecurities don't exist, having to try to pretend that I don't care that he's constantly looking at other women and taking his attention off of me so he can look at others. No. I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing that. That doesn't sound like it would make me happy. And another thing that people will say is marriage is not supposed to make you happy. Okay, thank you so much for telling me that because now I don't want to do it then. Why would I want to purposely do something that is going to make me unhappy? Why would I purposely volunteer to participate in something for the next 50 years of my life that is guaranteed to make me unhappy? Oh, it's so you can get money if you stay married to him for a couple of years and then you divorce him. Okay, but I can also suffer for a couple of years building my own business and building my own YouTube channel and just suffer that way, which is not as bad of suffering, building my own business versus suffering at the hands of a man's emotional abuse, at his cheating, at his neglect. This is another thing. A lot of people will stay married on paper, but then that's it. They're only married on paper. That woman is still being emotionally neglected. He's still ignoring her in favor of other women. He is still looking at, fantasizing about, jacking off to other women all the time. He tries to escape from her so he can play his video games, so he can go out with his bros. He is using her 50-50 money because now he's got a discount on his bills. So instead of him paying however, all of his rent and all of his groceries and stuff, now he's got someone contributing to the rent, contributing to the groceries, and most likely cooking those groceries, and most likely cleaning on the side as well. So now he's got 50% less chores. He's got 50% less expenses. So you know what that means? More money that he gets to spend on OnlyFans. By the way, speaking of OnlyFans, did you know that the majority of OnlyFans subscribers are married men? So imagine dedicating your life and being faithful and being loyal to a man who is now spending your 50-50 money on OnlyFans girls. So he is literally spending his money on a girl who centered herself. So those OnlyFans girls, they're obviously not centering their marriages and stuff like that. So he took part of your money and he is giving it to a woman who has centered herself and centered her own bags instead of centering a man. In my opinion, the sacrifices that are required to get a marriage and maintain a marriage are often not worth the benefits you receive. So, for example, I sacrifice my career, I sacrifice centering my life around myself, I sacrifice having an apartment that was decorated exactly how I wanted it decorated because I was the only one that lived there. I sacrificed only having to cook and clean for myself. I sacrificed being child free. So I'm sacrificing all of these things just so I can get what? Some quote unquote love, male validation, and maybe an additional $1,000 of extra spending money per month. If I wanted to have an extra $1,000 of spending money per month, I can get a side job delivering pizzas, for God's sakes. Instead of going through all of this arguing, going through all of this emotional manipulation. Because another thing that I've seen is if you go to like the married woman's TikTok or like, that niche on YouTube and stuff with all of these housewives and 50-50 wives, if you go and listen to their talking points, whenever they talk about having a conflict with their husbands, they will say things like, oh, well, you have to speak to him in a way that is inspiring to him. When you're asking him to do the chores, you have to make sure to say it with the right inflection and say it with the right tone, and you have to smile this way. And it's like, no, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life figuring out how to curl my lip so that my husband takes out the trash. I shouldn't have to turn into an entire motivational and inspirational speaker just to get a man to do simple tasks. And I'm not willing to make all of those sacrifices just so I can say that I have a husband or just so I can have an extra $1,000 of income coming into the house. And it's like, what good is that $1,000 of income if I can't enjoy it? Because now the grocery expenses have gone up because there are two people eating groceries. The light bill has gone up. So oftentimes that extra income that he is bringing into the relationship is going to get spent within the relationship. And it's also going to be 50% spent on him. Because most guys who get married to a woman, they are getting married primarily for, what they claim to be their version of love. But then also they're getting married so that he can build himself up. He's hoping to build his wealth. He knows that he can retire earlier if he's got a wife doing his domestic duties, organizing his business tasks, kind of doing all of the administrative duties behind the scenes. And it's like all of that energy that woman spent in that man, she could have invested that energy in herself. Even if she was a single mom, she could have invested that energy in herself and her child instead of, okay, I've got to try to invest in the child, got to try to invest in the man, and then I'm going to put myself last. This is also why a lot of married mothers end up living their lives as social martyrs. I don't want to be somebody else's social martyr. I don't want to have to sacrifice my dreams and goals, sacrifice my happiness and my mental health so that everybody else around me can thrive. I don't want to live my life as a workhorse. I don't want to live my life as a mule. I don't want to live my life as a bang maid or a servant. A lot of times, the woman is the one who is sacrificing her own comfort and well-being for the comfort and well-being of her husband and children. So she is sacrificing her happiness for her husband's happiness. She's sacrificing her happiness for her children's happiness. Instead of going home and crocheting and knitting and doing all these hobbies that she loves, she no longer has time to do that because she has to cook Johnny's dinner. She has to cook little Scotty's dinner. So more of your time gets taken up with chores. And again, this is for the women who marry the average man, or 90% of men in the US, or about 80% of the men in the US who make less than 100K. And by the way, even if a guy does make over 100K, that is still usually not enough to afford a full-time maid and a full-time nanny. And most guys aren't going to go for that anyway, because I've even seen videos of guys saying, oh, well, if I have to hire a full-time maid and nanny, then I'll just not get married then. Exactly. So you're just admitting that you just wanted to marry us because you wanted a full-time maid and nanny. You wanted a free womb that you could impregnate, and you just wanted her to be your baby-making factory. And it was funny because I recently saw this interview with Shaquille O'Neal where he was talking about how he messed up his marriage with Shawnee O'Neal and their children and stuff. And he was saying how the difference is that now he comes home, and before, when he used to come home, there used to be like 5 or 6 voices that would greet him. And now he comes home and it's empty. And I was thinking, wow, that's actually a horrible answer. So instead of saying, oh, I was sad because I lost the love of my life. Shawnee is so amazing. My wife is so cool. Like, I really wish that I could be with her. I love my children so much. I'm so blessed to have them in my life. Instead of saying that, he literally said, 5 or 6 voices used to be greeting me when I walked through the door, and now nobody's greeting me when I come home. Nobody's rushing to the door to say hello to me when I come home. And so this reveals the nature of a lot of men. A lot of men are really getting married and having children simply for validation. They just want to be able to walk into somewhere and then everybody's like, oh my God, hi, how are you? So it's almost like getting the celebrity treatment. being a husband and father for a man is like being a pretty girl for a woman. So that man, he has spent most of his life being invisible, so he had to work his way up to become a multimillionaire. He had to work his ass off to just become desirable, and then once he is hoping to finally secure the marriage and the children and the side chicks so that he can finally feel like he is being treated like a celebrity. So a lot of guys, they want marriage so that they can be treated special, which is, that would be fair if they actually treated you as being special, but oftentimes it's more of an ego boost for themselves. And also, I've heard a lot of men say that they want children so that the children can take care of them when they're old. And usually, the men who are having children, they expect their daughters in particular to take care of them. They expect their daughters to be the ones nurturing him, wiping his behind when he gets older. Usually, it's not really the sons, I've noticed. So, if you really look at it, a man really cannot thrive without the presence of a woman. And I've noticed that a lot of guys, they don't realize how much they actually are codependent on us women, because a lot of guys, they're good at being the worker bees. They're good at being employees. They're good at submitting to other men and having other men tell them what to do. So even in Shaquille O'Neal's case, he's got his coach or, the NBA team owner telling him what to do. So a lot of guys kind of spend their lives almost acting as puppets or acting as pawns for a more dominant, more wealthy male. And because of this, a lot of men feel a lack of power and a lack of authority in their lives, even if that man does have money. And so for a lot of guys, their one way that they can feel like they're the king of the castle is if they get married and have children. So him marrying you and you birthing his children, it's not because it's so romantic. It's because he has romanticized the fantasy of being adored by his wife, being adored by his children, being adored by society, and like people in his workplace, him getting promoted and being adored by his side chicks. And he gets to still look at porn and be with you, and you're giving him a discount on bills. Oh, that sounds like heaven for a man. And then I've heard a lot of men make this talking point that women were created by God to like get married and have children, or, what's more important than family? Family comes first. And that's actually not true. Because there are too many toxic people out there for me to make a blanket statement and say that just because someone is my relative that they should come first. So first of all, that's actually a toxic talking point. And then number two, you don't get to tell women what our purpose in life is. Every individual gets to decide what they want to spend their life doing. And guess what? Happiness is subjective. Everybody has their own definition of what will bring happiness for them. So for some people, yes, maybe it will bring them happiness to have kids and get married and stuff. And if you are one of those people, you should do that. But for others, maybe it makes them happy to travel or to become a doctor or to do missions work or to help people in other countries. There are so many more ways to find happiness and fulfillment and meaning in life besides washing dishes, changing diapers, and wearing a white wedding dress for one day. And also, my question is, if every woman on earth had $100 million, would the marriage rate still be what it is? Would they all still be married? If every woman in this world had $100 million to her name, would she still get married? A lot of times, most women wouldn't. They would just have fun and be carefree, so maybe they'd have a boyfriend, maybe they'd have sneaky link, friends with benefits, whatever. But would they be married and go through all of these sacrifices that are required to maintain these marriages? A lot of women wouldn't. And another pattern that has made me not pedestalize marriage anymore is when I looked at the stats and the numbers about widows. A lot of women who are widows, they actually don't get remarried nearly as often as the men do. A lot of women, especially if they're old and they're a widow, they just enjoy the rest of their days as a single woman. A lot of women who get divorced, they also are less likely to remarry and they just enjoy their lives like remaining unmarried. Whereas oftentimes if a man is a widow, and like he lost his wife or something, or if a man gets a divorce from a woman, he is often the main one that wants to immediately search for a new wife. And that's because men on average can only be happy at a woman's expense. And this is because a lot of men lack a sense of purpose and they lack a sense of meaning. And so, like I said, they have that Shaquille O'Neal mindset where their only sense of meaning is when I walked in the door, 5 or 6 people were greeting me. And also another thing that people don't realize is that a lot of things that men do revolve around, hopefully, attaining a wife and attaining a woman, attaining a mother for his children. So all this talk about how women are the main ones who want relationships, that's completely completely false. I am a firm believer that men want women way more than women want men. Men want relationships, sex, friends with benefits, whatever. Any contact with a woman, men want that way more. Because men are over here willing to pay. They're willing to pay for AI, artificial intelligence girlfriends. They're willing to pay for sex dolls. They're willing to pay to go to strip clubs just to watch a woman dance, just to have a woman glance at him and give him a little bit of attention, or, dance with him and stuff, give him a little lap dance. So men are the ones who are willing to actually pay money and in some cases go broke. I mean, there are men who are spending their bill money, they're spending their 401ks, their savings. A lot of guys are literally living in poverty because they have spent so much money on women and because they have impregnated women and they have to pay all this child support and stuff like that. So women are actually the ones with the social power. Women are actually the gatekeepers of sex. We are the gatekeepers of relationships. We are the gatekeepers of marriage. No, it's not men. We are the gatekeepers of all of those things, because if a woman doesn't give the guy the signal that it's okay for him to propose, or if the woman does not express any interest in being married to him, or she doesn't make him feel comfortable and confident enough, then he won't even have the confidence to propose in the first place. He won't even have the confidence to ask for her number in the first place. So most women, in my opinion, are actually more confident than men. And this goes back to emotional intelligence. It's because women are socialized to deal with our emotions more. We are socialized to care for ourselves once a month because we've got a period every month. So we are taught things like self-care, or we have to learn those things naturally because of the way our bodies work. And then, patriarchy, they thought they were getting one over on us by trying to make us the nurturing ones and make us kind of the servant ones. But guess what? If a woman knows how to use those tools to nurture herself, all of those things contribute to a woman's confidence. All of those things contribute to a woman's self-esteem. Women's confidence is higher than men's because women, we're not as desperate as men are. Like a lot of women, we're not over here like simping, begging guys to sleep with us and like being willing to pay guys. We're not out here going and purchasing sex dolls and creeping on underage boys and stuff. No, that is men as a gender that are more likely to do that. Men as a gender are the ones who are more likely to spend hours every week searching pornography or spend hours every week going on dating apps. Men are the ones who are more commonly on dating apps. They're the ones who are they're searching more for a woman because they're searching for a sense of self. They're searching for a sense of confidence. They're searching for a sense of fulfillment. And this is also why a lot of men will cheat as well, because it's not enough. He is so lacking in confidence to where he still doesn't feel confident even if he has a wife and children. He needs another woman to boost his confidence even more. And then he needs a third woman to continue boosting his confidence even more. So men's confidence actually comes from women. Their self-esteem comes from women. Meanwhile, we as women have an innate sense of self-esteem that comes from within, and that's because of the way that we have been socialized. That's because of the way that we are within our own nature. We know how to nurture, where we tend to be better at things like caregiving, and we are able to utilize those skills within ourselves. And also, women are more emotionally aware than men. So a lot of men, they don't even have a vocabulary to describe their emotions. So most men are walking around, they'll be depressed, anxious, insecure, and they won't even know. They won't have any idea because they don't know how to pinpoint their own emotions. But as women, we can pinpoint our emotions. We can say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling a little bit sad today, so let me cheer myself up. Let me go on a walk and then I'll get myself a smoothie. A lot of guys, they're not doing stuff like that. They're not going on walks and getting smoothies and doing yoga and shit and journaling. And no, the average guy uses his normal maladaptive coping mechanisms, which I talked about on another episode. The average coping mechanisms of a guy tend to be things like video games and pornography. They also tend to be more likely to engage in risky behaviors. So men are about 16 times more likely to go to jail than women are, because a lot of guys, since they are not emotionally aware, they get to the point where they become numb, like emotionally numb, to where they can't feel anything. And so a lot of guys, they start thrill seeking so that they can have that sense of emotion again, so that they can feel something again. So this is why you see guys who are street racing at night. You see guys who are like longboarding and like skateboarding and dirt biking off of cliffs and stuff. You see guys jumping into freezing lakes and doing all of this crazy stuff in an attempt to gain that sense of feeling again. This is also why cheating is very common amongst men as well. It's because that adrenaline rush that they get from the cheating, like the adrenaline rush that they get from sneaking around, from sleeping with the side chick in his car, to, sleeping with a woman on lunch at work or whatever, all of that adrenaline rush, that gives him a sense of feeling again. And so guys are more likely to have these thrill-seeking behaviors, and a lot of women, because most of us are a little bit more fulfilled on average, a lot of us are able to get excitement just by looking at some pretty flowers, or by, like taking a walk in the park, or maybe if you have children, playing with your children. And so a lot of women are not as emotionally vapid as men. We are not as emotionally empty on average. And so because of that, we are not as draining. Have you ever noticed how a lot of your interactions with men are emotionally draining? And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. Think about your interactions with your brother, your interactions with your father, with your male cousins, with your uncles. Most of the time, you end up avoiding those men. You avoid your uncles. You avoid your cousin because you already know, oh, Tyrone's probably in jail again. He's probably going to ask me to borrow some more money. I'm not going to let him borrow any money. So a lot of times your interactions with men tend to be more draining, because a lot of guys, they really are in a state of being emotionally depraved. I've talked in another episode about how most of the customers, like most of the people who go to therapy, are women. So the women on average, we are actually putting our money where our mouth is. We are more likely to invest in therapy. We're more likely to read books about trauma and coping mechanisms and stuff like that. So women tend to be much better at self-healing and self-regulating. And a lot of guys, they're not good at self-regulating, and so they seek out external emotionally bonding and emotionally attached relationships, whether it's with a wife, whether it's with children, whether it's with side chicks, or via sex, or via, even with pole dancers and sex workers and stuff. A lot of guys seek out emotional attachment so that they can kind of take the energy and kind of drain that life force away from the person that they are attached to. And like I said, I've seen brothers do this with their sisters. I've seen fathers do this with their daughters. I've seen this with cousins and stuff, or with even in a romantic relationship, or even if you break up with a guy, he will keep on stalking you for years because he's holding on to the emotional attachment, because being in a woman's presence was the only thing that helped him to have more awareness of his own emotions. It's the only thing that helped him to have more awareness of how he felt. And so when you leave him, and when that emotional attachment is gone, he feels that sense of emotional emptiness again, and he can't handle that. This is why we've got a lot of men out there who are stalking their exes. They're still trying to message you and stuff. They will make fake emails so they can message you. They will make fake phone numbers and stuff so they can still text you. They'll be calling your job and stuff just so they can get in contact with you, because a lot of men are very emotionally empty without women. And the same is not true for women. A lot of women actually can thrive emotionally without having a man in their life. I've seen women thrive as single mothers. I've seen women thrive being single. I've even seen disabled women thriving, widows, older women who are literally by themselves. Nobody lives with them. I've seen women thriving in all types of different states of life, and that's because a lot of us are much more emotionally aware. And so why would I want to tie myself in a marriage for the next several decades with a guy who is most likely emotionally unaware? Most likely, I'm going to be paying his bills or giving him a discount on bills. Statistically, he is more likely to be viewing pornography or subscribing to OnlyFans. So that means that a part of my 50-50 money or whatever is going to an OnlyFans girl. So it's why would I spend the next several decades of my life doing that? And then people are even telling me when I'm not married, they're telling me, well, marriage is hard and it's the hardest thing you're ever going to have to do, and it takes a lot of sacrifice and you're not going to be happy. Marriage is not supposed to make you happy. It's supposed to make you a better person. You just have to do your duty as a wife. Have you ever noticed how a lot of men operate based on duty? They don't operate based on morals. They don't operate based on emotional well-being and happiness. They just say, oh no, I just have to do my duty as a man. And it's well, no, I don't want a guy around me who is only with me because of duty, or he's only around his children and caring for them because of duty. I would rather have someone around me who is happy to be around me, or I'd rather just be by myself. And this is why a lot of men, even if they do have children, once those men get old, their daughters and sons still abandon them, and those men still die alone. And that's because the man, people around him could sense that he was only doing things out of duty. He was only doing things because he was hoping that he could emotionally manipulate his own children into feeling obligated to caring for him later on. And the reason that a lot of children are closer to their mothers is because oftentimes mothers are acting as the martyr for that child. And hopefully, if the child is like grateful or the mother did a good job or whatever, then the child tends to be able to see that. And then they tend to care for the mothers more because they grew up and then they realized, okay, my mom, she was doing a lot of cooking and cleaning for me. She was the main one paying the bills when dad didn't have a job. And that's another thing. A lot of people don't actually know what the vows of marriage actually are, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer. And I don't want to spend my life with someone who is poorer and living his life for the worst. I don't want to be in something where I know that I am inevitably going to have to deal with poverty, or I'm inevitably going to have to deal with him at his worst emotional state. Meanwhile, if the tables are turned and the roles are reversed, most guys will not stay with a woman when she is at her worst. A lot of guys are more likely to leave a woman if she has a chronic illness or if she is diagnosed with like terminal cancer and stuff like that. I remember there was even a pastor at the church that I used to go to. His wife got diagnosed with some sort of terminal illness, and she was still alive, but this guy literally still cheated on her. He found another girlfriend and then like divorced the woman or like just left her, and then he got remarried to another woman. So a lot of guys will leave you based on a few pounds that you gained, based on you being pregnant. So because being pregnant means you have weight gain and then also your moods are fluctuating and stuff. A lot of guys will leave you or cheat on you when you're pregnant, when you gain weight, or when they've married you because they feel like they got you and you can't leave. So of course men want marriage the most because they want to trap you the most. A lot of women it's much harder for a woman to trap a man in a marriage than it is for a man to trap a woman. And this is because women often offer way more value than what a man does in a marriage. Oftentimes, the only thing a man offers in a marriage is money and dick. Whereas women are offering money, we're offering sex, we're offering a free womb, we're offering childcare abilities, we are offering all types of other things, cooking skills, cleaning skills, administrative skills, helping him to maintain his relationships with the in-laws, conflict resolution skills. So all of these soft skills that women are bringing to a marriage far outweigh what a man can bring. And if all I want is an extra couple $1,000s a month and some sex, you can get that without being married. You can get those things without having to deal with the emotional turmoil of arguing with a man multiple times a week. You can get extra money and fulfillment and validation without having to financially and legally bind yourself to someone and change your whole name. And, now your own children are not going to have your name. They're going to have the father's name. So then even if you and the father break up, even if your children do become famous and successful, now it's tied to his name. It's not even tied to your name or your maiden name or whatever. And then if you do get a divorce, now you have to go back to the office and have your name changed back to your original name. So it's like, no, for me, it's just not worth the hassle. And don't even get me started if you are in a marriage with a man who has kids from a previous marriage. So it's like, okay, I get to be a free babysitter for the kids that aren't mine. I'm raising kids that are not my own. I'm nurturing kids that are not my own. And then the baby mama, she's out living her best life. And this is why I don't shame single moms either, because a lot of single moms can end up having a huge advantage because she doesn't have to deal with marriage problems. And then in the event that her baby daddy gets remarried, now she's got a free babysitter for her child as well. So it's like she just gets to live her best life and she gets to be child free or like have a break on the weekends or every other weekend or whatever. So a lot of single mothers actually end up having the advantage in that case as well. Another thing that happens if you end up being a stepmother is that your labor is not appreciated. And I know that no matter who you are, your labor is most likely not going to be appreciated in the marriage, but this is especially true if he has children. Oftentimes those children are never going to have the same emotional attachment to you as they have to their real mother. And then same thing, the father or your husband, he's never going to have the same emotional attachment to you as he does to his kids. Most men are going to put their kids above the stepmother. They're going to put the kids above the wife because remember, he's looking for that meal ticket when he gets older. He's looking for those kids to take care of him after you leave him. He's looking for those kids to take care of him after you have died and passed away. Most men get into relationships knowing that they are not going to last. Most men get into marriages knowing that they're not going to last. And so this is why guys, they will have, a wife and she'll be the stepmom, but he's still going to put his blood kids above the stepmom because in the back of his mind, he still knows, okay, there's a chance that she could still leave me. My kids can't leave me because they have a stronger emotional attachment to me. So I can use my position as their father to emotionally manipulate them into caring for me when they're older. But if my wife divorces me, that's it. She's gone forever. I can't manipulate her even if I piss her off. Whereas with my kids, I can still emotionally manipulate them for the rest of their lives. And another thing that caused me to decenter marriage is the amount of time and energy that it takes just to get a man to interact with you in a marriage. So all of these videos online where married women are like, oh no, you have to ask him to do chores this way, and then you have to talk to him in a certain way, and then, you have to repeat it 3 times and make sure that you repeat it at a time when he's in a good mood. You have to wait till he's in a good mood before you ask him to take you shopping, because if you ask him when he first woke up, then he's going to be grumpy. So you have to wait until at least 2 p.m. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to schedule certain times to where I can ask a guy questions or, have to ask permission before I go shopping. I have to ask permission so that I can get something. I'm not spending the rest of my life like that. And then some people are like, oh, well, when you get into a conflict in a marriage, you just have to give him some time and space to think it over. So you can come back to the conversation 3 days later, or you can just hire a marriage counselor. And it's like, I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars over the next 30 years on marriage counselors, spending all this money on marriage books, spending all this time waiting 3 business days before I can have a conversation with you. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life playing those games. That does not sound like the soft life to me. I could be spending those 3 days on a weekend trip with my friends. I could be spending those 3 days investing in something that I'm passionate about without having to constantly be in this stalemate, because a lot of marriages have all of these stalemate arguments where it's like, oh, well, we haven't been talking for a few weeks because, we were arguing about buying a car, or we were arguing about what neighborhood to move to. We were arguing back and forth about what color to decorate the house. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life being in petty arguments. And then people are like, oh, well, marriage requires compromise. It requires finding a middle ground. And it's like, okay, I've already had to find compromise and a middle ground with capitalism. I already have to deal with racism, colorism, texturism, featureism, people disliking me because I'm mixed. I have to deal with all types of discriminations out in the real world, or I have to deal with my own family dynamics with the family that I was born into. And now, on top of all of that, I'm supposed to volunteer to center my life around a relationship where I'm going to have to constantly find the middle ground. No, I want at least one piece of my life where it gets to be centered around me. I want at least one piece of my personal life to be able to focus on my own happiness, my own inner strength, my own healing, doing the things that I truly love. I don't want to have to constantly find a middle ground in every area of my life. I want some things to just be about me. And if that makes me self-centered, so be it. All the more reason to not be married. All the more reason to remain child-free. I am not going to be constantly sacrificing my happiness for other people's happiness. I'm not going to constantly sacrifice myself for the well-being of others. I've already done that throughout my early life. I've already done that when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when I was in school. They teach you things like teamwork. You have to deal with that at the job, like at the workplace and stuff. So no, I choose to have at least one piece of my life where I am not doing that. I choose to have one piece of my life where I get to totally invest all of my money or invest all of my spare time, all of my free time, and do all of my hobbies just because I love doing them, just because I want to be happy and I want to feel like my life has meaning. That is what gives my life meaning. It's taking back at least a piece of my life, taking back a piece of my life for myself, taking at least one piece of my happiness, and actually taking back my peace as well, and deciding that I get to have peace regardless of whether or not men approve of me, regardless of whether or not I'm following the trend of getting married and having the wedding dress or whatever. I don't care about that. I care about my peace above everything else. I don't want to have to cry all of the tears that are required to even stand there on that altar and have that wedding dress on. I don't want to even have to go through all of the arguments and all of the back and forth and all of the hidden text messages and hidden Instagram DMs and hidden OnlyFans accounts that are in that man's life. and sacrifice all of that and sweep all of those things under the rug, constantly sweeping my own emotions under the rug just to even stand at that altar in the wedding dress. I don't want to do that. But you know what I would like to do? I would love to put on a nice white sundress and take myself on a trip to the beach or go and hang out with my friends and go and have fun and go and be carefree. For some of you, maybe you would love to put on that white doctor's coat one day and you get to invest all of your extra money in your education because you don't have to worry about investing it in a man. And my husband says we have to buy a house right now, so that's what all my extra money is going towards. My husband says we have to buy a new car right now, so I have to save $10,000 to go 50-50 on this new car. No, I'm not doing that. If I have $10,000, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my teeth done. I'm going to get my abs done. I'm going to go to a spa. I'm going to go on a vacation. I'm going to save that money. I'm going to invest it. I get to take back at least a piece of my own freedom. A lot of marriages require a huge sacrifice of freedom on the part of the woman. And that's because the woman is the one she's giving her last name. She's often giving up her career, or she's giving up 50% of her income to go to the guy. So she's going to have less free time because when she gets home from work, she's going to work her second job of cooking and cleaning for that husband and then still be expected to bend it over and bust it wide open at night. Otherwise, he's going to go look at porn instead, or he's going to go chat it up with the OnlyFans girl that doesn't even give a fuck about him and doesn't even know his name. And another thing that caused me to stop pedestalizing marriage is I am not going to spend the next 2 or 3 years jumping through a bunch of hoops in order to prove to a man that I am worthy of being called wifey material. I don't have to prove my worthiness to anyone. I don't have to cover up my cleavage to show that I'm wifey material, or, I can't wear a 2-piece bikini. I can't wear short skirts because I have to try to prove to him that I'm so classy and I'm so elegant and that I'm wifey material. No, I approve of myself. And half of the men who are arguing about women not being classy, those men can't even afford to be in classy spaces to begin with. Those men can't afford to take you on a $500 dinner. They can't even afford to fly you out to Turks and Caicos. They can't even afford to do all of these things that they say you're not classy enough for anyway. They can't even afford to get you a wig that doesn't have baby hairs going down past your eyebrows, for God's sakes. So why should I spend my time and spend my life trying to prove how classy I am to a man who is most likely going to still leave me or cheat on me if I simply gain a couple of pounds or if I get a couple of wrinkles? If all it takes is a few frown lines and a few wrinkles for him to devalue me, then he was never valuable to me in the first place. If all it takes is me gaining a couple of pounds for him to completely want to throw me away, then he should have been thrown away 50 years ago. I'm not wasting my youth, I'm not wasting my beauty, I'm not wasting my body on a man who feels like I have an expiration date, or a man who views me as, oh, you gotta use by 2025 because that's when she's gonna turn 35 years old. You gotta use by date. She's got an expiration date. Oh, she's past the expiration date. I'm not going to spend my life trying to impress a guy like that. No, you can go to those other countries or wherever you wanted to go to get whatever woman or go to the local high school to get whatever woman you feel is worth your time. And by the way, kudos to those women. Get your bags, ladies. But I'm not going to waste my time in a state of competition. I'm not going to compete for a marriage. I'm not going to compete for a guy's attention. No, I'm going to finally enjoy my life. I'm going to finally take back a part of my peace. I'm going to take back at least a part of my freedom. The society we live in is already so controlled and structured and stuff like that. So it's okay, we already have to deal with all of these other things going on in life. We have to deal with wars. We have to deal with economic issues. We have to deal with inflation. We have to deal with things going on at our jobs. We have to deal with menopause if you are middle-aged, or medical complications and stuff. And on top of that, I'm supposed to volunteer to get into a relationship where I'm most likely going to be utilized and devalued for my resources, for my non-physical resources, because at least with guys, with money, you can earn money back. You can get money back, but I can't get my time back. I can't get my youth back. I can't take back the baby that came out of my body. I can't take back all of those years that I wasted and all of those dreams that I gave up. I can't take those back unless I put myself first. And so that's all I'm doing, is choosing to center myself again. I am choosing to establish some boundaries to the point where if a relationship is not making me happy, if I don't feel like I'm directly benefiting from it, if I feel like I'm constantly the martyr or I'm constantly sacrificing and doing everything, I'm doing all the planning, I'm over here keeping all the dates on the calendar, I'm remembering important dates for him, I'm reminding him of birthdays and anniversaries, I'm not spending the rest of my life doing that because that's going to make me feel unfulfilled. That is not going to give me the feeling of having a soft life. I just feel like for a lot of marriages, it takes so much just to attain it in the first place, and also to maintain it after you have been married. It's so complicated trying to keep up with all of the nuances that come with being married, sharing your finances, sharing a living space. You have to organize your whole makeup routine in the morning around his boo-boo schedule because, he takes 45 minutes going boo-boo in the bathroom in the morning and now you got to get ready for work and he won't get out of the bathroom. So now it's an argument every day right before you go to work, or he doesn't like that type of furniture. So now you don't get to have your dream furniture. You get to have an ugly ass early 2000s leather couch with a cup holder in it and a thing that leans back in the seat because that's what he wants so that he can watch the game. So you don't get to have your cute little beach chairs and your modern furniture. Nope. It's Sunday afternoon and you thought you were going to go to a brunch. You thought you were going to have a Sunday fun day. I don't think so because the football game is on. So now you have to rearrange your life around football games. You have to rearrange your life around your husband's mood. You have to rearrange your sexual desires around what he has picked up from porn, what he has picked up from OnlyFans, what he got from the strip club. You have to try to spend your life measuring up to strippers, measuring up to OnlyFans girls, measuring up to his bros. He gets to go out and do all of these. He gets to go sign up for marathons. He can sign up to do rowing and stuff. He gets to join the local ultimate frisbee team. He's doing Tough Mudder runs and he's doing the Ironman races. Meanwhile, you get to stay home and babysit while he levels up. So on Saturday afternoon, when you are cooking his post-workout meal, he is at the gym flirting with another woman. He's at the gym looking at that other girl doing squats. He's at the gym admiring the woman who decided to center herself and who is not centering her entire existence around that guy. Also, have you ever noticed that the average woman who marries a man who is not rich, usually that man will age gracefully and that woman will end up looking like his auntie? And this is because oftentimes the women are spending all of their time in the marriage stressed out. They're trying to keep up with him sexually. They're trying to keep up emotionally. They're trying to manage all of his moods and stuff. And that's very stressful for a woman. Not to mention the fact that she is probably working and paying 50-50 on bills or 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, whatever you want to call it. She's still partially financially responsible for what's going on, not to mention the fact that a lot of men have shorter lifespans than women, and a lot of men tend to have more health problems than women, and this is because, like I said, I believe that with the way men are socialized, they're socialized to eat a lot of bad foods. I know that all of us are, but a lot of women are scrutinized for things like our weight or our skin being messed up and stuff, whereas men, they don't really get scrutinized as much. So a lot of guys, by the time they're middle-aged and older, they start having serious health problems like high blood pressure, cholesterol problems, diabetes. Maybe he becomes disabled or he has to be in a wheelchair or something, or you basically have to act as his caregiver. And so that's also stressful. I don't want to spend my 40s and 50s acting as somebody else's caregiver. If anything, I need to be caring for myself. I want to be caring for the women that watch this channel. I want to create a real community. Oftentimes, women that care for their husbands, they still get treated badly by the husband. I've seen so many husbands who are still mean to their wives, even if the wife is out here pushing him in a wheelchair, even if she is the one going to pick up his cigarettes from the corner store, even if she's the one going to pick up something for him from the liquor store, he will still be treating her like trash. And he'll still be over here gazing at another woman, still always fantasizing about another woman, always fantasizing about who else he wants to sleep with. I don't want to live my life like that. You know how they say choose better? Well, that's me choosing better, is not choosing to be in a slave marriage, not choosing to be in a marriage where I am not happy or in a marriage where I feel like it's the hardest thing in my life and all that. No, I'm choosing not to have to work hard in order to maintain relationships. I like to go into a relationship effortless and carefree. And if he likes it, I love it. If he doesn't like it, kick rocks. He can go be with somebody who is willing to mule and wash all the dishes and do all this stuff and, go 50-50, be a working mom and come home and take out the trash. That's fine. If that's what a guy wants, then he should go and get that. The male gaze is abundant, and if you're a woman with 2 legs and a hole, you're always going to have some guy who is still gazing at you. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm not going to get any validation, I'm not going to get any privileges, I'm not going to get any special treatment. Trust me, yes, you are, because there will always be some guy who is gazing at you. Another thing that caused me to decenter marriage is parenting arguments. I remember when I was with my ex-husband, we literally would have arguments about kids that didn't even exist. So thankfully I'm child-free and never had kids, but I don't want to spend the rest of my life arguing about how to parent my children. Let's say he has a different religious background, or maybe he was emotionally abused as a child, and so he wants to bring that into the family line, and he doesn't know that he was emotionally abused because, like I said, lack of emotional intelligence. So he thinks it's okay to tell a child, hey, you suck at basketball. Oh my God, you're so bad at that. Oh, you'll never be a football player. He thinks it's okay to tell children that, or to talk to children a certain way, and you don't. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life going through parenting arguments. What I would rather do is reparent myself, and I would rather die alone than die inside. So yes, I will be child-free, and I will start off by reparenting myself, which means bringing healing to myself, so remothering myself, refathering myself, nurturing myself, teaching myself a sense of discipline again, and, restoring all of the lost dreams that I may have had as a child, just kind of pleasing my inner child in a way that is healthy to me. And then after that, I can focus on pouring from a cup that is full. I just feel like a lot of women in marriages, especially if they've been married for a long time, a lot of those women's cups are empty. And this is why these women argue so much with their husbands. You know how they say, oh, you guys argue like a married couple. Okay, well, that's a bad advertisement for marriage. That's a horrible advertisement for marriage. I don't want to argue like a married couple. I don't want to ever argue like a married couple with anybody. I don't want to have to spend my life on defense mode. I don't want to have to defend every decision I make, have to argue back and forth over every life decision, every financial decision. I don't want another person having say or having influence and control, or being able to hover over me or helicopter over all of my decisions. Oh, why are you buying that car? You shouldn't buy that car. That's not a good investment long term. Don't buy that car. No, I can buy whatever car I want to buy because I am not pedestalizing marriage. I'm not centering a marriage. Also, the whole concept of the wedding, it's kind of like you were just throwing a party for people that you don't really know. You're throwing a party for people you don't really know, people you only see once every 10 years, and oftentimes people are going into debt to do this kind of stuff. So they're going into debt so they can have a wedding dress, or so they can have this big party, so they can impress a bunch of people that they don't really know, or so they can impress their family members, or kind of stunt on and flex on their family members. That's another thing that I don't want. But another reason that I decentered marriage is because it's much easier to just break up with someone. Like, let's say something goes wrong, which if you're dealing with men, it most likely will go wrong at some point. It's much easier for me to just be able to say, okay, it's over, and just block him. Just block, delete, and then boom, you never see him again. You're free. You literally can continue going about your life as if he never existed. You can erase him out of your memory if you want. You can do some trauma work. You can do some tapping, whatever you need to do to basically erase that guy out of your life, versus, oh crap, now I have to move out. I have to save up my money, get another apartment. I have to try to hide my assets so that, I'm when I'm dealing with the courts, they don't try to take some of my money. I have to now hire a lawyer to try to speed up the process. Lawyers are not cheap. So it's I have to try to hire a lawyer. I have to see when the judge is available or get all of these papers signed. I have to try to get him to sign the divorce papers. Oh no, he won't sign the divorce papers. So now I've got a contested divorce, and now we have to spend the next 5 years arguing over property like couches and TVs and cars. Now we have to sell the house, so I have to see where I'm going to move to. I got to stay with my sister for a little bit. I'm not going through all of that. So another reason why I feel like there are benefits to not getting married is because in the event of a breakup, it's very swift and easy for you to just get out of it. You can easily just block, especially if you don't live with him. I don't recommend living together, especially if you're not married. No. So it's like if he does something wrong, you just block him and move on. And then any clothes you may have left at his house and stuff, that's just clothes. Those can easily be replaced by Fashion Nova. Just go on Fashion Nova, order $20 more worth of clothes, and then boom, you never have to see him again if you don't want to. Another thing that made me decenter marriage is that if you have to have a contract in order to be faithful to someone, that is a red flag to me. Because I've noticed a lot of people, they get married because to them, marriage symbolizes loyalty. It symbolizes, that you really love that person a lot because you're having the whole wedding, they have a whole ring and stuff. But it's like, if I need a whole entire legal contract just so I can convince myself that this man is going to be loyal and committed to me, that's already a red flag. And I'm not saying that there are no legal benefits to marriage. But I just feel like the romantic benefits of marriage are not strong enough for me to want to get into a marriage, because a lot of people, they try to pretend like, oh, I'm just getting married for legal purposes. No, most times women are getting married for romantic purposes. You're getting married because you like the concept of, wow, he loved me so much to the point where he was willing to spend thousands of dollars on a ring, spend all this money on throwing this big party for me where I wear a white dress and parade me in front of the whole world as his woman. But you don't realize that non-married women are getting that type of treatment all the time. They're getting guys buying them diamonds, buying them jewelry, buying them whatever. There are women who are sex workers who get guys throwing big parties for them and taking them on a honeymoon or taking them on a vacation, taking them on vacation. There are women who are unmarried who get those exact same things. So if I have to get a whole contract signed legally in order for him to start treating me special, it's not worth it. It's not worth it for me. Why do I have to go through all of that, spend 3 years proving myself just so that you can sign a contract and then you're going to treat me special? No. Why would I do that when I could just put myself on a pedestal and treat myself special from day one and just attract guys who treat me special from day one, even if they're not my husband? And then people are like, oh, if you're married, you can file taxes together, so there's a tax benefit. But if you're marrying a rich man, he's most likely going to owe taxes. So what are you talking about? Anybody who says that most likely is in a 50-50 marriage or they're married to someone who is poor. Getting your taxes done costs what, $150 if you are average income, maybe $100 at best. So it's like, okay, I have to sign this whole legal contract just so I can save $100. Like, am I that broke? Another thing that people don't take into consideration is that people change. So I know that for me, what my first marriage taught me was that I am an ever-changing person. I'm constantly changing. I'm constantly trying to grow. I'm constantly evolving. So whether I realize it in the moment or not, I am going to change. So if I change or he changes, I don't want to be legally bound to someone forever, or I have to pay thousands of dollars to get out of this legal binding because I changed, or because, I decided I wanted to live in a different part of the world and he wants to stay here, and now we have to go through a whole entire divorce because of that. No, I'd rather just be able to say, okay, I'm moving on with my life or whatever, and then I just leave and I move on. And I get on a plane the next day and I go to wherever I want to go. Another thing that made me take off marriage from the pedestal is realizing that just because a man has money doesn't mean that he is responsible with money, and it doesn't mean that he is good with money. So even if you were to marry a man who does have money, that doesn't mean that you can just come in and start dictating how he should spend that money. But you know who can dictate the money that I spend? Myself. I know I can dictate how I spend my own money. I know that I can make my own plans to retire early. I know that I can spend 50 hours a week investing into my business and that it will grow. But with another person in the mix, I can't control another person. I can't control his desires. I can't control what he wants to do. And so that's another reason why I took marriage off the pedestal, because oftentimes in marriages, it's going to be the woman sacrificing and the man making all of the final decisions on finances. I don't want somebody else to be able to have the final say on my finances. I don't want somebody else to be able to log into my bank account and take out money or tell me what I can and can't spend my money on. Another thing that people don't think about is the aftermath of a divorce. Imagine spending tens of thousands of dollars on a huge wedding, inviting your friends and family. They all give you wedding gifts. They give you money to get started and stuff, because people often give you money when you get married. So they're celebrating you. You have a bachelor party, bachelorette party, and then you get divorced a few years later. So yes, you may have got your bags out of the marriage or whatever, but it's like you still kind of scammed your family, or like you have to now go back and explain to those family members, oh yeah, we broke up, oh, we got a divorce, like, yeah, so basically it was a waste of time. And you sometimes will have to deal with the questioning of your own family members. Oh, why did you guys get a divorce? What happened? Or let's say you have kids. Why did you get a divorce from daddy? Why did daddy leave you? What happened? Where is daddy now? And that's another reason that I do not pedestalize marriage anymore, because I don't think that it's romantic like how people say that it is. Another thing that I've noticed is that desire is more important to a man than love. He would rather feel desired than love you. So this is why you've got a lot of married men who are in the workplace flirting with a receptionist. This is why the majority of OnlyFans subscribers are married men. This is why plenty of married men are still looking at pornography and stuff, because a lot of men care more about desire. They care about that emotion of desiring someone and themselves being desired. And oftentimes they care about that more than their own marriage, hence why they want to trap you in the marriage in the first place. Because then he can get away with it. He can say, oh, I looked at porn, and you're not going to divorce him because he looks at porn, and he knows this. So now he's glad that he got you to marry him, because now he can look at porn in peace every single day, and he gets to have his cake and eat it too. Now he gets to flirt with the receptionist at work or talk to his ex on FaceTime all the time, and you get to just sit there and deal with it because he knows that you're not going to divorce him over something like that. The average woman who gets a divorce after dozens, if not hundreds, of wrongdoings by the man, which I really think should change. But a lot of women, they will stay because of the sunk cost fallacy. So a lot of women feel like, hey, I've already been with him for 10 years. I've been with him for 20 years. I have 3 kids with him. So I might as well just try to work it out as opposed to leaving. Nope, trust me, leaving is always a better option than trying to work it out, because you can't change a person. Even if you spend tens of thousands of dollars on marriage counseling, that's not going to change him. And that's also not a good consequence. I've learned that men, they tend to learn based on consequences. They don't learn just because you took him to a counseling session. Oh, okay, I know I cheated 20 times, but since we went to marriage counseling for 1 hour, now I'm just going to be faithful for the next 80 years. No, that's not going to work. Men work based off consequences. So you have to leave a man. A man basically has to suffer, on average, before he even learns a lesson. So it's like, no, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life just trying to go through counseling sessions and trying to do all these little fake punishments to a man that I know are not going to work. Just because you don't have sex with him and you're married and you're mad at him, guess what? He's still going to get his orgasm. It'll just be with another woman who's not you. So he's going to go on OnlyFans, like a lot of the guys are doing right now. He's going to go on OnlyFans. He's going to go on Pornhub. He's going to go chat with some girls from the video game. Like, even on video games, they have like little discords and groups that you can join where it's like sex chatting and stuff like that. So that's what he's going to do. So you not sleeping with him or shutting him down in the bedroom, that's not really the punishment you think it is. It's not going to change him, because a lot of men are so obsessed with sex to the point where they can't even go the rest of their lives without looking at porn. Most men can't even go more than a month without looking at porn. They can't even go more than a year without going to a strip club or, talking to their ex or looking up girls on Instagram and stuff. So what makes you think that you not having sex with him for one night is suddenly going to change him into a virtuous man? It won't. And so this is why a lot of women age badly when they are in marriages, or they have to spend thousands more on trying to maintain their beauty and maintain their appearance. But I would be frustrated because it's like, okay, I'm maintaining my beauty and my appearance all for a man who doesn't appreciate me. I would be better off with my fine ass just being single and just having pretty privilege, going on trips to Mexico, getting free drinks and stuff, getting free everything, like getting brand deals, go on Instagram, get sponsored by some brands or something, do makeup on the side, just being carefree. Your beauty is actually of more use to you if you're one of those women who cares a lot about pretty privilege. Your pretty privilege is often so much stronger as an unmarried woman without the ring on versus being a woman who is like married and you're kind of trapped in the house. A lot of women lose their social lives once they get married because they're trapped in the house. They're stuck in the house. They're in prison. They've been banished to the kitchen. They've been banished to cooking and cleaning for their kids. They've been banished to going to elementary school soccer practices and being a free taxi driver for the children. And so they are not even out enjoying their pretty privilege. They're not out enjoying looking pretty and being carefree. They can't spend all night at a bar or like go to a pool house or something and play pool with their friends until 2 a.m. They can't do that. They have to go home and feed their kids. But a lot of husbands, they will stay out at bars until 2 a.m. A lot of husbands, they'll stay out late and play pool with their friends and they'll be flirting with the bartender too. All while the woman is at home in her silk bonnet, just waiting for him to come home, sitting on the couch, eating ice cream, gaining weight by the day, waiting for her husband to come home. And then once he gets home, they will have their nightly argument and then they will try to do makeup sex and then she will not have her orgasm and then they'll go to sleep. That is most marriages. And this is why, even for women who are poor, a lot of poor women would actually be better off just getting a roommate that they are not having sex with, that they're not emotionally attached to, and you just pay your part of the bills. You know, you go live in your dream city, go live in Los Angeles, go live in Atlanta, go live in New York City, go live in Boston or London or Paris. Go live in those dream cities. You're better off living by yourself, renting a room, paying your little $500 a month, and then you can go out and if you want to get a boyfriend or if you want to, have fun or whatever, then you can do that and you don't have to worry about, oh, why didn't you come home? Why didn't you do this? Oh, you need to come and do these dishes. No, because you don't have anybody who is telling you what to do. You don't have anyone who is waving a helicopter over your freedom and kind of surveilling everything you do or saying you can't go out on a girls' trip because it's unsafe. Have you ever noticed how a lot of guys will use that as a gaslighting tactic? And I'm not saying that it can't be unsafe when you travel out of the country and stuff like that, but I feel like a lot of guys use that as a controlling tactic because they will say that it's unsafe. Meanwhile, these guys are over here going to Thailand so that they can do sex tourism. They're over here going to all of these other countries with their boys, and those countries are way more unsafe than you going on a girls' trip to Vegas. So when you are not married, you are less likely to have to deal with all of these problems. A man telling you when you can and can't go on a vacation. A man telling you what you can and can't have for Christmas. No, if you're single and just living with roommates, you can buy yourself a designer bag for Christmas. You can go out and get your bags by bartending, being a barista. You can work from home. You can do contracted work, do some little modeling gigs on the side, sell stuff on Poshmark. You can do makeup artistry on the side, do lashes, be a nail tech on the side, and get yourself whatever you want, and you don't have to answer to anyone. And you don't have to worry about your beauty not being appreciated because one thing that I've learned is that the average pretty privileged woman who is unmarried is more appreciated than the average woman who is married. Because I've noticed lots of women who are married are unappreciated just altogether for their beauty, for their cooking and cleaning skills, for so many different things. But the average woman who's just carefree and she's just out living her best life, she gets to experience more appreciation and also she gets to appreciate herself. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, if I'm married, I can just appreciate myself and I don't need him to appreciate me. Then why is he there? Why would I want to spend my life sleeping next to and letting a man go inside of me who doesn't even appreciate me? I don't want to do that. I'm not going to spend my life like that because it's like, okay, let's say I'm going on a vacation with a man who doesn't appreciate me. Well, I would have been better off on that vacation by myself or going on that vacation with my friends, with my sister, with my mom, or with somebody who actually loves being around me. I don't want to spend my vacation having all these awkward conversations with my husband like, oh, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Oh, I just want to lay down. Okay, wow, he's just sitting on his phone now. Okay, so he doesn't want to go hang out with me. No, I would be better off just going by myself, getting my nails done, getting my coffees or whatever, or just going with girlfriends. And it's much more carefree because I'm not having to manage the vacation around my husband's moods. Another thing that I appreciate about not being married is that I don't have to deal with living with a guy. So a guy telling me, oh, I don't like when you cook XYZ because that garlic stinks up the kitchen. Or, I like to eat chicken, but I notice you only like to cook turkey. So it's like when you live with a guy, oftentimes you start tailoring your lifestyle to match up with his. Don't get me started on how most guys eat very unhealthy. And so oftentimes you're going to end up eating a bunch of unhealthy crap along with him because you want to emotionally bond with him. And so he's going to naturally end up dragging you down. So instead of eating cucumbers and chicken noodle soup for dinner, you are now eating baby back ribs and Whataburger and In-N-Out Burger. You're eating McDonald's for dinner. You're eating Taco Bell because that's what he wants to eat. So I've noticed that oftentimes when you live with a man, you begin to naturally cater your lifestyle and cater your schedule around his. So for example, you can forget about intermittent fasting if your man that you live with doesn't want to do that. because you're going to end up still cooking and you're going to be making his breakfast. Then you'll just be like, oh, it smells good. You know what? Let me just eat some of this bacon. Let me just eat this Egg McMuffin sandwich right here. So I've noticed that oftentimes girls who live with a guy, they do end up being more likely to fall off on their personal goals because they're kind of revolving their life around the guy. I remember there were times when I wanted to go on super long hikes and stuff, but I wouldn't go because the guy that I was with, he didn't want to go. So then I would just be like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be weird if I just leave the house for 4 or 5 hours, or it's not as fun if I don't go with him. And that's another thing that helped me to get out of that mindset. The false narrative that if a guy is not there, then it's not going to be fun. No, most of the time it's the opposite. If a guy is not there, it is going to be fun because nobody's complaining. Nobody is huffing and puffing when we're hiking up the mountain. Nobody is complaining that he's hungry and wants to eat McDonald's when you're going on the drive. So you get to just enjoy your own company, or you get to enjoy the company of your friends. Or even if you have a boyfriend or something, you just enjoy his company, then you guys both go home. You guys both have space. You guys both have your own places you're living in. You're not merging your finances together. He's paying his bills, you're paying your bills at your apartment. And then if he ever messes up, cheats on you or whatever, you just block and delete and then you get to move on. Another thing that made me stop pedestalizing marriage is realizing that the guy could potentially change. So I know I talked about how I can change within a marriage, but a lot of times men will change. I've heard so many stories online of women saying, oh, my husband started watching the red pill stuff. My husband started watching Fresh and Fit. He started watching, this religious cult-like narrative, because a lot of those groups, they favor men a lot. So this is why a lot of men love to flock to the church so that they can exploit women. A lot of men love to flock to the red pill space so that they can feel like the kings of the castle. And so I've heard plenty of stories about women saying, oh yeah, my husband started watching all of this stuff and now he's treating me differently. Now he's saying I need to submit to him more. So that's another thing that you don't have to deal with if you're married. You don't have to deal with his potential changes that could be for the negative. Like if you're just boyfriend and girlfriend, you can just block him right there. Then you just never see him again. You never have to live with a red pill man. Imagine living with a guy who is red pill. Imagine living with a guy or having kids with a guy and you just found out that he joined the red pill community. Those are just some of the reasons why I stopped pedestalizing marriage, because it's like you have to pay to get married, then you have to pay to end the marriage, and then the turmoil that goes on in between those 20 years or however long you were married, it does not outweigh, or I mean, it far outweighs the benefits that you may have received within the marriage. But anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.